Well, welcome everybody. We'd like to welcome you to our regularly scheduled meeting, and we'd like to go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to our roll call. Ms. Palacio.
Governing Board President Sherry Lowe.
Present.
Governing Board Clerk Denise Reese.
Here.
Governing Board Member Anthony Bruno.
Present.
Governing Board Member Raul Rodriguez.
Present.
Governing Board Member Dr. John Sparks.
Present.
District Administration Superintendent Dr. Manuel Valenzuela.
Present.
Assistant Superintendent Scott Downs.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Brett Bonner.
Here.
Chief Financial Officer Lisette Huey.
Here.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to approval of agenda. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, President Rowe. At this time, I would recommend approval of the revised agenda as presented with one just clarification. We are striking item 8B as in boy, and we are still addressing some matters pertaining to the food services area, and so we'll bring any related topics back at a future meeting as needed.
For recommendation, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those approve, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll move on to approval of minutes. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. President Lowe, members of the board, in your packet, bless you. In your packets, you do have draft copies of multiple meetings and other gatherings of the board, specifically the draft minutes of the regularly scheduled meeting of the board back on May the 29th. Also the special meeting of the governing board back on May 21st, and also the public gathering notices for the Sahuarita High School and Walden Grove High School graduations, respectively on May 22nd and May 24th, 2024. And after your review and consideration of all of that, I would recommend approval of the minutes as presented.
For recommendation, do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to ratification of vouchers. Ms. Huey.
Good evening. Tonight I recommend expense ratification vouchers 3097 and 3098, totaling $776,469.52. Additionally, I recommend new expense vouchers for approval, and this is for fiscal year 23-24. This time frame, we're actually in old fiscal year, but also we're trying to open up new fiscal year. So we're in that stage of our budget cycle, and that recommendation is for voucher number 3105 to 3122, totaling $36 million. And new expense vouchers for fiscal 24-25, starting with 1,000 to 1,017, totaling 36 million, for a grand total of $72,776,469.52. Again, that is in 2 fiscal years as well.
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Superintendent report. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, President Lowe, members of the board. Just a couple of notations. You know, we might think that these are the relatively quiet days of summer, and they are in some way. However, I just wanted to communicate that lots of activity going on in many ways, including the investment of the community's bond dollars. These bond dollars are being put to work and are already yielding some fruit and the results that we anticipated. Specifically, the Verkada camera systems are those installations of that state-of-the-art system, and for those of us that have had a chance to kind of interface with it, it's a pretty amazing system, and you can see the quantum leap of technology progress since 2010, when I think we installed the last ones. In addition to that, I believe in my last briefing from Mr. Downs, that the Safe Haven ballistic resistant glass project is in full swing and should be done within the next week or two, right, Scott? About 4 weeks before the students return in the fall. And I had the opportunity today, as I try to do every Wednesday, to read my copy of the Sahuarita Sun, and I saw some great pictures in the paper of the stadium renovations at both Walden Grove and Sahuarita High Schools. Those projects are in full swing, and we look forward to beautiful new state-of-the-art turf fields and corresponding tracks. So it just feels affirming to be able to validate the community's trust and already start delivering on those projects, and many more are to come. So with that, I yield the floor back to you. Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to our governing board reports. Dr. Sparks.
Thank you very much. It's hot out, and it still continues to never amaze me how hot it is. But also I had a chance to visit Sahuarita High School this last week, and summer school full swing and summer arts program in full swing. But I think we do feel like it's a little quieter around here, but it's still moving at full steam in a lot of places. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rodriguez.
A report.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bruno.
And I took a swing by Walden Road,
Yeah.
and it is impressive, everything that's going on back there. I actually didn't get out of my car because of the heat. But pulling up and seeing what's going on was pretty amazing to me. I've seen a lot of change in the district over the years, and it's always impressive when a project sort of comes together. I know there will be change orders and other things, but we do know the work is going forward.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Ms. Reese.
So I just want to put just a shout out to our students right now who are participating in all kinds of summer leadership activities and things like that. Boys State, and I believe Girls State as well, just concluded this last week. I know that our NJROTC unit is out for leadership training this week or week and a half right now. So there's a lot going on with state competitions and national competitions for our students involved in our CTE programs. So I just want to wish them all good luck and congratulations on making it to that level, and good luck with the rest of your summer.
Thank you very much. And everybody stay hydrated in these days. We will move on to call the public. Do we have any call to public, Ms. Blasio? Thank you very much. So we'll move on to new business. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. President Lowell, members of the board and public, I believe you're referring to item A.
Item 8.
Item A.
Oh, we're gonna jump to new business. Yeah, the 2025 proposed budget and public hearing.
Yes,
notification.
ma'am. President Lowell, the 2025 proposed budget and public hearing notification. This is kind of a dual part of the statutorily required budget process. And so before I turn it over to my colleague, Mrs. Huey, I'll just make a few points. This is a required process by law. I'll ask Lizette to present at this time the anticipated budget. As was referenced, it's called proposed, and I'll ask you this evening to approve it specifically with the authorization to schedule a public hearing to discuss it, as we always do, before the final approval, which I believe is required by mid-July. So this is the normal part of the budgeting process. So just a few comments. One, I want to extend my gratitude to Lizette for, as always, the meticulous, professional, and thoughtful approach to budgeting. The first point I'd make for you to keep in mind as you listen to her talk is it's a conservative budget. By that I mean it's by design. It doesn't make a lot of possible assumptions, potential assumptions. It basically assumes what we know for a fact, which is that in the area of growth, we're budgeting with zero growth. Now, we see a lot of construction going on, and we're optimistic about progress and the promise of the future. But the fact is, growth has slowed a lot, and so we're budgeting accordingly. Similarly, the state legislature is still in session, and so certainly no anticipation of new money from that process. I think we're all aware that the state's in a rather tight budgetary predicament right now, and so that's a safe and conservative approach, to be very careful in that regard. Having said that, though, and focusing on our local optimism here and kind of what we are able to do, the health of the budget right now and what you're going to hear about the proposed budget, it's sound. And I ask you to keep that in mind as you're watching. It's approximately, if I remember correctly, about a $60 million total budget, about $50 million in expenditures. And we are, and we, as you recall, the board took a very thoughtful and very strong statement of support to our 860, 870 plus employees in terms of a very robust, I think it was a robust compensation package, in addition to some intentional new positions to support specific programmatic objectives. And we did that by utilization of the fact that our budget is healthy and that we have strong carry forward responsibly. And that's the focus of our carry forward, is to use it as we do in our personal lives, right? As a safety net to keep the momentum of the district and the objectives and the programs going forward in a responsible way. So I think those were the main points that I wanted to make. And with that, I turn it over to my colleague, Mrs. Huey, for a more detailed explanation.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. V. Tonight, I just wanted to remind everyone that I think I mentioned it earlier in our ratification of vouchers that we are in 2 fiscal years. So we are really projecting. We're projecting our expenditures for this year. So there are a lot of things that are still to be closed. We have till 6:30 of this fiscal year to continue our expenditures. And so this is forecasting what we are going to end this year, and then what we're going to open up next year. And anything that comes from that, it's very conservative, like Dr. Valenzuela said, but from anything that comes, if there's any additional savings or any additional carry forward monies that we can bring along, we will do that, and that's when we revise in May to do those. So just keep that in mind. So if we do see growth during this year, we're able to add that on at a later time. We're just not doing it right now because we want to plan
Or
conservatively.
maybe thinking optimistically the possibility of the state legislature providing us some more money.
Oh, absolutely, and we'll take it, and
Yes.
we'll be able to add our to our budget. You can do it in December, and you can also do it in May if we want to capture any of that residual. So we just are going conservative to start the year, and then we'll just continue to monitor it. So I just wanted to keep that in mind. So we'll go ahead and start with the maintenance and operation. Again, we do a comparison to our revised budget from this current, I say last current fiscal year because I feel like this year is almost done, a revised budget to our proposed budget. And again, that starts on July 1st. And based on our base level support, we're looking at an increase of about $16,143, and then no additional transportation revenue control limit. So that brings our total revenue control limit and it's up $16,143. Any adjustments to our M&O? Again, thank you to our voters for our override. We have a 14% maintenance and operation override. And because we saw a good increase in this line item specifically because it goes off of prior year ADM. And if you remember, during this fiscal year, I mentioned that the legislature changed our tuition students, our continental students. So we were able to add their ADM in last fiscal year, which is this fiscal year. And because the new budget for fiscal 25 reflects prior year ADM, we're able to include that, and we get an additional amount for our override. So that amount is $425,629. And there are no other adjustments. Our proposition, the Proposition 123 that was enacted in 2016, I'm projecting just what I projected last year, 425,000, which is a slight decrease of $9,592. And again, that's because it's based off of prior year ADM. I'd like to see how the numbers settle at the end, and then we can always add when our numbers when the numbers come out. Our 2024 last year or this current fiscal year, we received one-time funding of $1.7 million. The legislature did not allocate that funding for next year. So that is a cut to our budget. We knew that. We budgeted accordingly. We spent it, but we also knew that going into this fiscal year. So that is not a surprise to us. Hopeful that they would reapprove it, but again, it wasn't a surprise. Our maintenance and operation, we do a transfer to our energy and water savings. Again, that is our solar project. And they're, based on our schedule, the projected payment went up about $36,519. And so our total M&O allocation for just our allocation, you'll see it is down from our revised budget of $1,342,709. I've been looking at numbers all week.
All day.
I apologize. And so that brings our total maintenance and operation allocation of $49,756,732. Which brings us to our carry forward. Dr. Valenzuela mentioned we're able to, again, roll over. And again, this is an estimated carry forward conservatively. Once we close out the books, the AFR will come out in October, and then we'll know exactly what that carry forward will look like, and then we can tack it on to this year's. So our carry forward projection right now is $10,631,285 for a grand total of our maintenance and operation budget limit of $60,388,017. Any questions on the maintenance and operation? So going now to our district additional assistance, which is also referred to as DAA. Some people still call it capital. Again, these are for items like our furniture, equipment, what else? The textbooks, our adoptions, all of those items. So our first item is our DAA revenue limit. And again, we're able to increase that amount because of our prior year ADM, continental tuition. So we're able to increase it $173,892. Again, our capital outlay override is a flat amount, and that is $1 million. Again, thank you to our voters because we, as you know, our allocation has been, I think, 1980. Then they changed, the legislature has even increased our allocation for capital. So because of our taxpayers and our community, we're able to increase our budget about $1 million for capital outlay items. So that brings our total DAA allocation of $4,665,760. Again, we're projecting our estimated carry forward. As you can see in this current fiscal year for our revised budget, we had $3 million. We have some buses that we're paying for, and my understanding is that they will be here June 30th. There's still some more delay. We originally thought April. May came by, and now we will be starting the new year off with new buses. So that would be great. But again, I have to take that into consideration. We're closing some purchase orders, so I felt comfortably bringing over carry forward of $1,936,384 for a grand total of $6,602,144. I'll turn it over to Dr. V.
Well, there it is. Again, I hope you heard some of the themes. Conservative budgeting, very careful, but as a result of being very careful budgeting, a budget that is healthy and that is able to be used to deploy in advancement of our objectives. The other thing that I hope you heard is that this is still kind of a dynamic, hence the word proposed, and even after foreseeably the board adopts it next month or whenever we do it here in a couple weeks, before July 15th.
Yes.
That even then it's still kind of a flexible state until the final processes later on in the fall, right?
Correct.
So with that, at this time I would recommend approval of the 2025 proposed budget and public hearing notification.
Recommend. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
I actually have
Yeah.
two things.
Yes, sir.
So I was closing out stuff at one job and opening stuff at the other, and I don't know who sent the email first, but it was very late in the evening, and I can honestly say, without trying to get anyone in trouble, Lizette answered my email very late in the evening.
Thank you.
So it's good to see that the work ethic is there from both sides. So I greatly appreciate the fact that you were doing numbers all week. The other question I have, and still receive adjacent ways funding?
Adjacent ways funding is still a statutorily allowable levy.
And the question is it, where would it be in this budget?
It would be listed as a line item here, and it would have to be designated for specific processes. We've used them for processes that qualify, but this year we don't have it in the budget. Is that right?
That is correct. This year, we're not adding it to the budget for this year because we don't have any additional further needs for
You don't have
those
any
ways.
room to
Yeah.
do any more adjacent ways?
Right.
Okay,
That's not the proposal at this time.
Correct.
thank you.
Thank you for answering my email, by the way.
Any further discussion? I know the numbers sound big. I'm always very grateful for us being so conservative, but I think it's mindful for the public when they hear those numbers that we're a big district, and when something goes wrong, it costs big too. So when we need to replace something big, that reserve goes really quickly. And so I'm very grateful for the fiscal conservativeness of our budget, and it just sounds like a lot, but I'm grateful that we have it if the need arises. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very, very much, Lizette.
Thank you.
We will move on to item number C, Arizona School Alliance for Workers' Compensation and Contract Renewal. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, President Lowe, members of the board. That is a very long accumulation of words, isn't it? Arizona School Alliance for Workers' Compensation Contract Renewal. Workers' Comp. This is our Workers' Comp renewal. And just a couple of comments. It did go down by approximately 5%. The quoted amount is for $231,922. And so I do recommend approval of the 24-25 fiscal year Arizona School Alliance for Workers' Compensation Contract Renewal.
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
The motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the public online auction items. Dr. Valenzuela.
Um,
Oh, no. Item number D. I crossed it out.
Item number D, which is...
We're going to go, D, Arizona School Risk Retention Trust Contract Renewal.
Yes, ma'am, President Lowe and members of the board and public. This item is not quite as many words, but close. Arizona School Risk Retention Trust Contract Renewal. Now you know why we just affectionately refer to it as the trust. The trust is our property liability insurance company program. And the only comments I'd make is it did go up. It went up by, well, specifically 11.39%. The average among the entire pool was about 15%. But the reason for, so a couple of the reasons for the increase, and President Lowe, you kind of referenced it a little bit in the previous item, is that the cost of replacing things, property, and when things have to be replaced is going up because the cost of materials and the cost of construction and manufacturing, all that's gone up. And frankly, so hence the cost of our claims in regards to property did go up this year. So again, we're below the pool average, and we must have our liability insurance. So I do recommend the board's approval of the contract renewal for the Arizona School Risk Retention Trust for fiscal year 24-25. And if you'd like to know, it's $787,537.
Thank you very much. I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just really quickly, I just want to make sure that with the budget proposal that we just looked at, the numbers for both of these contracts, the previous one and this one, those are reflected in those budgets, correct?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
All right.
That is correct.
A very important item not to skip over.
Well,
the agenda.
yeah, and
Like, we
it's
need
it's
to
one of
get
those
to the point.
things of where it's like, are we budgeting based on last year's numbers
Yeah.
because this hasn't been approved and things like that. It's one of those things that for the public to understand is that we're budgeting based on the highest numbers that we've got in order which to create that conservative budget to absolutely be taking sort of everything into account as we go through this budgeting process, which is not for the faint of heart in the state of Arizona. And it really is something that sort of takes about 6-8 weeks, even just on the board side. And then that's not accounting for any kind of adjustments later on. So it's something that I just wanted to make sure and kind of make public that we're using these higher numbers in these cases where we're being given quotes for what it is that we're looking at and making sure that those are accounted for when we're doing a budgeting process.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very
Absolutely.
much.
And we also, there's also opportunity with the insurance, both the Alliance and the trust themselves, to give us what they call TLC credits, which is credits that we can do. So there's, I know Ramon and Manny Villa do additional classes in those areas, and they give us points for those. And when we get points, then we get discounts. The last one that we received is about $25,000 for, I believe, the trust. And then there was an additional amount for the Alliance. So they go through things like trips, slips, and falls for the safety portion of it. So then that way, one, we're learning, but then we're also making sure that we get some type of reward for it too.
Yep.
That's not included in here. So that's an addition that comes off later. But you're right, we go off of the highest and hope for the best. And we do all the things that we need to so that we can get those credits, and then they would be applied, and then we can use those resources other places.
Perfect.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to item number E, public online auction items. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am, President Lowell. Again, this came onto the revised agenda. So of course I checked what was on there. Usually it's fairly routine, but we do have a couple of interesting things this time. You have a John Deere Gator. We have a club car, which to make sure I looked it up. It's those golf carts that we use. And I also saw some interesting music stuff, synthesizers and amplifiers and woofers and things that, again, are old and have exhausted their useful life for us, but hopefully will have some value for folks out there so that we can capture residual value to add to our budget. So at this time, I would recommend approval of the public online auction items so that they can have proper authorization to be put on the auction block.
I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? And a popcorn machine is on there. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We will proceed to the consent agenda, Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, President Lowe, members of the board. You have in your packet a comprehensive list of items that are considered routine or consent, and they may be considered in one comprehensive motion. And that is my recommendation at this time, approval of the consent agenda in its entirety.
Recommendation. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
I just want to put a shout out to the
Yes.
the Wrights and Ridge Tortoise Garden and all of the donations that were received for that. That is such a neat project, and it's really cool that we've had so much community buy-in on that particular project. So thank you very much for those
That's really
donations.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Do we have any possible future agenda items from the board tonight? All right, then we'll move on to establish the next board meeting, June 26th. I'm here at the pod, and we have no executive session, so I'll just need a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.